Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. In this video, we're going to have a look at circumstances and how to change them. So when we have a circumstance that pops up into our reality or something that is just undesirable or it's a little bit triggering, understanding that we sometimes do not have control over how things unfold in our world. So what I mean by this is that things can unfold that are undesirable, and if we get triggered by them and if we have emotions and things like that, we should be able to allow ourselves to experience those emotions and to accept what is happening, but with the understanding that once we do that, we're going to be able to sit down now and perceive it in a different way, to go a different way for something better to unfold. So what I mean by this is that when we are coming into manifestation, and a lot of the time when we come into manifestation, it's an awareness, and we become more in tune to that awareness. And sometimes it can seem that things are unraveling in an undesirable way. If you look to maybe some videos and some content out there, it'll say like opposite things are happening, even though we're affirming for something different. But actually what is happening there is that our awareness is coming into more, we're becoming more aware of our awareness, if that makes sense. And so because of that, we're actually more aware of the circumstances and more aware of things that are coming up. Because before, when we were not aware, we were allowing ourselves to dwell on the circumstances, and we were thinking that it was impossible, and we were thinking that, you know, there was nothing positive of it, or that it couldn't change, and all of these kind of negative assumptions that we were having before we realized that we could be aware of them and actually choose to think a different way and choose to perceive it in a different way in order to have a different outcome, if that makes sense. So the opposite coming up is not that we're actually purging everything out. It's actually just because we are more aware of these thoughts and we're more aware of the negativity than we would have been before. Because remember, everything that we have negative or anything like that is coming from a subconscious belief, and subconscious is underneath the surface, meaning that we were allowing all these kind of negative assumptions and negative experiences to be dwelled on in a way that they impressed on the subconscious mind. And so if it's under the surface, it means we don't see it. And so because we are actually becoming more aware of what's under the surface right now, that means that we're going to be more aware of circumstances and things that might pop up. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It doesn't mean that there's, you know, that you're doing anything wrong or anything like that. It just means that you're actually doing everything right because you're more aware of everything. So the cool thing then about that is, because we're actually more aware of what's underneath the surface, it means that we can change it, and we can change the direction for where we go from here. So I know in some content on manifestation, there's this concept of revision, and there's this concept of sitting down and kind of revising something in your head. And when I look to revision, I kind of look to it in a way that it comes from the point of moment where I actually decide that it's going to go a different way. It doesn't mean that I sit down and actually revise that this whole thing didn't happen, because if something has happened in your reality and you actually identify it and you decide that you're going to think in a different way, that is actually a revision in itself, meaning that when you start to change your brain and the neuroplasticity in your brain starts to change, it'll seem like that thing never actually did happen, because you'll be creating different, better, positive outcomes in your reality that will be giving you evidence as well too that these things, were kind of just a stepping stone to bringing you to where you are, and they were actually all a benefit to you. And when you start seeing it in that way, it seems like the circumstances and that didn't really matter at all. And that's where the concept then, circumstances don't matter, come from, is because when we come into the awareness of this and we choose to perceive things in a different way, we are actually creating then the result then, in the next minute and the next minute and the next minute. So when we're wanting to change circumstances, it's not that we overwrite the circumstance altogether. It's actually more about accepting it in the moment in a way that we accept that, some things are just going to unfold in a certain way, and that's okay. And the more we kind of face up to it in that way, we then say, but I always have the decision to choose how I'm going to respond. And if there's something triggering me, maybe I have a belief that I have to work on, it'll be revealed to me and I'll work on it, and then I will create a different outcome. But right now in this moment, I'm just accepting it the way that it is, and I'm going to perceive it in a different way by asking myself certain questions on how I want things to unfold. So when we are actually sitting down with a different perception on it, we ask things then to ourselves, okay, what am I seeing now in this world? What am I seeing as myself? What am I seeing in the people around me? What am I seeing in my circumstances and everything? What is it that I am seeing? And am I seeing things I like? Am I seeing things that I don't like? Okay, I'm seeing things here that I like, so I'll keep going with that. I'm seeing things here that I don't like, so let me just take a minute and rewrite that in a way that I am identifying why I am seeing this that I don't like. Okay, I see this that I don't like because I realized that showed up because I was not certain in the actual thing that I wanted to manifest from that, and that is where the misunderstanding came in. And so I'm going to come in now with an affirmation to say I am certain that this is going to work out for me, or I am certain that this is going to work in my favor no matter what is showing up. And that's kind of how we change the dynamic. And it's how we change the brain and the neurons in our brain as well too, because the possibility is starting to come in the brain that, okay, these circumstances are not what was supposed to happen, so we're actually going to go a different way. So we always ask ourselves then, about the circumstances, how do we feel? Do I need to do some self-regulation here? And if I do the self-regulation, maybe I'll feel better and I'll realize that actually, this is actually not as big as I thought it was. It's not that bad. It's actually going in my favor. And if I do the breath work, or I do meditations, or self-regulate in some way, and I'm feeling that I'm still kind of not feeling so good about this, then I'm going to look to my affirmations. Is there something there that I need to change? Is there something within me that I need to think differently or dive a little deeper in order to, change it around and to experience what I want? So when we look at it in this perception, and we realize that everything is just how we are perceiving things. So when we look to quantum physics, for example, and the observer effect is it changes in the way that we are observing it. So if we look to ourselves as the observer and we are actually observing something in one way, let's say, for example, it's undesirable and we're like, oh my God, this is so bad. This is really not so good. I feel terrible. I feel this, I feel that, and the other. But then we actually become aware that we're thinking that. This is where the whole kind of concept of manifestation comes in, because you're becoming more aware. Maybe you have a mental diet and you stop yourself and you say, hang on a second, these are just thoughts that are coming up. I'm allowing myself to perceive it in a negative way because of the thoughts, but I can actually just change my presumption, or my assumption about it and my perception about it. So I sit down and I say to myself, okay, is there something in this that maybe is teaching me in some way? Maybe there's something in this that is actually part of how things are unfolding. So already I'm starting to think in a more optimistic view. Then I come in with my affirmations and say, no, this is good. Everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working in my favor. I am on the right track. And I have these kind of positive assumptions. So then as I continue to say this in my brain, and I said before, I think it's 72 hours when we start to actually kind of accept something in our brain as maybe a memory or whatever. And so we say whatever it is that we're saying over a period of time. And that positivity then starts to create a different perception in our minds. Now, I look out to the circumstance now, and when it was maybe last week, it seemed like it was, bad, it was terrible. And I'm looking at it now, and I'm actually, it actually worked out better. It's actually working out better for me. And I'm kind of glad that actually happened in that way, because I am actually on the right track now. I know where I'm going, I know what I'm doing, and everything is actually unfolding in the best way. So it changed in a way because I changed my perception of it. It's like, when we change our perception on anything, it's going to change, and it can change straight away as well too. It's dependent on how much it's actually affecting us in our emotional kind of body, how fast that it actually changes. So I just wanted to make a quick video on that, when we have circumstances or anything that pops up, we always have the power to change them through how we're going to perceive them. So rather than actually sitting there and maybe revising something that it didn't happen, it's not a requirement. That's actually, you can do it less effortlessly by saying, okay, that happened, but I'm actually going to see it in this way, and I'm going to choose to see it in this way until I start to know that it's actually a benefit to what it is that I want. And then, something will show up. There'll be some maybe, before you actually even believe it, you can have an experience and you realize it'll just show you then that you're actually always on the right path in that circumstance. Maybe I felt it's not so good at the moment, but I can actually see now how it led me to here, if that makes sense. So I just thought I would do a quick video on that. If you have any questions, you can comment down below and I will chat to you soon.